Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
PD Beats here from Popternative, speaking to Addison Timlin about When I'm a Moth, which is available very soon. Thank you for your time. It's exciting to chat with you.
Oh, thanks. You too.
It's interesting, talking to you before. I mean, you shot this film quite a while ago. Now it's going to be on people to get to see it. What's that dynamic like? It's an interesting dynamic because as an actor, a storyteller, you're working on projects and you're not necessarily sure when they're going to come out. But a project like this specifically, which is so unique and different, what's it like for this one to finally get out there?
I think in general, like it's just great anytime you work on something for it to see the light of day, especially when you like work a lot in smaller independent films.
Yeah.
That's kind of the big plus side or silver lining of all these different streaming platforms is that all these, smaller projects are kind of finding different homes. So that's really exciting. The dynamic of like making a film and not knowing what will happen if it is kind of true of any film in general. So, I at least I try to not think about that as much as possible and just kind of, keep my head down and just do the work that I'm doing while I'm there. But it is also kind of like surreal because this was probably at least 5 or 6 years ago that we did this. So it's a little bit like, oh yeah, what was that like doing that movie so many years ago? But in general, I'm glad for the filmmakers. I'm glad that the project itself is finding its place.
Now, a different film, an indie film, a biopic, a little bit about the kind of early lives of Hillary Clinton, Hillary Rotham at the time. But can you just tell us a little bit about what it was like kind of working on a project like that and give our viewers a little bit of kind of a synopsis of what to expect? Because it is a biopic, and you are playing Hillary. But can you talk a little bit about what like we can expect with this film?
Yeah, I would definitely like personally move away from the term biopic just
Yeah,
because it is a lot of conjecture. It's a lot of like, that summer of 69 that is kind of briefly spoken about by Hillary and mentioned in, different places. This is just sort of like an imaginary story of what it would be like if Hillary or someone like Hillary, that time in her life, that year, on the precipice of what she was to become,
yeah.
what would that story look like? So,
Ooh, okay.
um, I was really intimidated by playing Hillary, because I admire her so much, and because I also just like I went to high school. That's it. So I just felt like, I was studying her voice a lot, and I was reading her, like a lot of her, or listening to rather, a lot of her like early speeches when she was at college and high school, and her early work as a lawyer, and it's just hearing her, trying to hear her speak mostly was what I was focusing on. But she's just such an impressive and wildly brilliant woman, so that was the most intimidating aspect of it. And then as far as the movie, Zach's interpretation of Hillary or the character, so like a very verbal young woman. So that was probably my biggest challenge is, memorizing those lines. They were like lines that never ended.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because, you look at all the projects that you've worked on in the past and your current projects coming out. I mean, you've got a chance to work on a lot of different projects, and I know it has to do with kind of the nature of going, where the opportunities are and everything. But do you look back and think it's kind of cool that you've had this opportunity to kind of play a lot of different characters and be in a lot of different roles? I mean, that's like gravy on the mashed potatoes a little bit, like a bonus, right? Like it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, when I look back at all the different films that I've done, and I mean, the thing that I'm most proud of is how different that all of the characters are. It makes me feel, the Larry Fessenden, who I've worked with a couple times, said to me like, oh, I really think of you as a character actor, and that was like the biggest compliment I've ever gotten in my career ever.
Yeah.
So it's fun. It's fun. it's fun to look back and look at all the different opportunities and how different they all are. And that, yeah, that has always been the most exciting thing for me to do as an actor, is to try to move away from whatever I did last. Not even last, but just in general, just moving into different characters is the most fun.
Absolutely. Naturally in life, you're wearing many hats because you're the storyteller, and then you're a mother as well. So there's a lot kind of going on. A lot of people, specifically diving into like the entertainment aspect of things, Addison, naturally kind of wear many hats. They act, but they also like write and direct. Obviously, you've been doing a lot of the acting, and that's something you're focusing on. But when you work on certain projects and you have a lot of colleagues that are writing, going behind the camera, does
Yeah.
it kind of like, do you like, are you interested in kind of working behind the scenes a little bit more, or is acting still kind of like the go-to focus?
Right now, my go-to focus is my two kids, I have to say.
Yeah.
But yes, is to answer your question, like, yeah, I am really motivated and inspired by, colleagues, peers that are foraying behind the camera. And it's definitely something that I think about. I think if there's anything that the industry needs more of, it is, it sounds probably kind of cliche, but more female voices. Um, you know, and then I do believe in that. I think watching female directors right now in this time is like super exciting. And I think there's still a lot of movement to be done in that space. And if I could just have a little bit more discipline, if I could just be a little bit more like Hillary Clinton, then I could probably sit down and write something. And yeah, it's definitely something I think about. It's something I would enjoy. I like directing. I think people that are great directors and want to be directors it's like something that fuels their day-to-day life and the way that they watch movies and the way they see the world. And so if I had to think of one category in which I would fall into, of like a writer, director
Yeah.
/ actor, I would probably see myself writing and or like stepping into like a TV show to direct, like kind of, putting
I,
like a spin on someone's vision, and not necessarily, like, I don't feel like I'm living and breathing with like a need to direct in the way that I feel like a great director is. And I don't think we need movies from bad directors.
It's interesting to see there is a lot of amazing things happening in directing. I find it interesting that you say you're obviously focusing on being a mom, your two kids. That's really cool. I mean, both your kids, both their parents are storytellers. Both their parents act or are in the business. I guess, it's kind of like a go with the flow situation, but is it kind of interesting to think of the possibility down the road that maybe your kids will be storytellers in that regard as well? Have you ever thought about that as well? Obviously they're growing, they're doing their thing, but that's an interesting thing as well, right? Because they're around it.
Yeah, exactly. So they're around it. It's it's what their parents do. It's what basically all of our friends do. So yeah, sometimes you go like, it's hard to imagine that they wouldn't be influenced by that in some way. But I also really believe that like actors are born. I feel like it's like you're born with like a certain like instinct to punish yourself or something. So I don't know. I don't know that it's something that I really focus on imagining for them. I can hear them like screaming in the background. I don't know if you can. But you just hope that your kids live in the exercise of their passion, whatever it is. I definitely, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they found themselves wanting to be in this business. But if they weren't, that would also be great.
Well, it's funny. I've interviewed other people in the past where it's the same thing. Two actors as parents, and they don't want their kids to do it, right? Like they don't.
Yeah.
Like there's that as well, which is very interesting.
Yeah, I feel like actors say that because there is quite a bit of like heartache and suffering in the profession. But having said that, like you just, there's heartache and suffering in the world no matter what. And you just hope that you can like prepare your kids for the reality of what it is. And I think the best way to prepare them for it is that the fact that they live with two actors. So, I hope that, they kind of can witness, the ups and downs of it and go like, maybe that's not for me.
Oh, for sure. Getting back to your film, When I'm a Moth, when people watch it, what do you hope they get out of it? We already established that it's an interesting take, it's a unique thing, it's an indie film. Takeaway wise, when they get to watch this, what are you hoping they get out of it?
You know, I'm hoping that they get out of it, like, that's a hard question.
There's a lot
You
happening
know.
in the film. Like it's interesting because it is kind of like an indie film, and there's not that many like actors in it. But if you watch it and like dissect it, there is a lot happening in there.
Yeah, right. So Zach, the writer director, is, he's a writer. Like, he's written novels and stuff. So there's a lot of like themes and symbolism and the imagery and stuff like that. So there is like a lot to unpack when you're watching it. But what I want people to take away from it is just sort of like, you know, stepping into someone else's shoes for a period of time, and sort of like opening yourself up to that sort of perspective. I think the film exists mostly in like the sort of quieter moments, and not so much what is on the page or in the script or what is said out loud, but sort of the quieter moments in between. And so, yeah, that's what I would hope to get out of it.
Oh, absolutely. Addison, thank you so much for coming on Popternative. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was nice to talk to you.
So the film's going to be available. They're going to be able to see it. And where can people follow you on social media to keep update with everything?
I am on Instagram, and that's basically it. Like, I'm on Twitter too, and I used to tweet all the time, but that is its own universe.
Oh,
Slippery,
it is.
It's a slippery
it's a
slope.
whole new world for sure.
Yeah. So now every time I go on Twitter, I'm just like, oh man, like, where did the hour go? So mostly I'm just sort of touching in on Instagram here and there.
Absolutely. Well, this has been Popternative. YouTube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, this is Addison Timlin and PD Beats signing off.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.